morning, everyone. Well, I would just like to acknowledge that all of you are not home making bean dip for the Super Bowl. I'm so pleased. And as a matter of fact, I see some faces that I am not familiar with. And so if this is your first time at the Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, or if you are newish and you haven't received one of our newcomer packets, would you please just put your hand up, and one of our wonderful new member people will give you something that will tell you a little bit about us. And we're so happy that you're here. You know, our vision is awakening personal transformation. So that means each one of us. And the mission, the way we do that, is teaching tools for positive change. So hopefully I will give you some tools today for positive change. This talk stretched me, so I already got them. And so I'm hopefully I can share them with you. So the global vision is a world that works for everyone. This is the whole denomination is working with this theme, or many of our centers, over 150 of our centers around the world are using this particular theme for the whole year. And what that means, in part, with all those hands around the globe, is that each one of us is doing our part to create a world that works for everyone. And if just us in this room did that, it would ripple out. It would ripple out around the whole world. So this is, we're already into our second month of the year, and the theme for February is Awakening to Our Spiritual Magnificence. So if you don't have one of these little two-sided study guides, this goes for the whole year. On this side, it says a world that works for everyone, and the third statement down is where humanity awakens to spiritual magnificence. So that's what we're talking about in February. And the quote that was offered to all of us in these notes that we get from home office is a part of what we believe on the other side, which is the second statement. We believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in everyone, and that all people are incarnations of the one Spirit. And that means everybody that's working with this theme is talking about the face of God today, and everyone having that face of God. I want to draw your attention to this wonderful altar by Kathy Fowler. I think she brought all the angels today, and reminding us that that there is the face of God reflecting back to us our face of God. So the title that I have given this talk today is Every Person Individualizes God, No Exceptions. No matter what color your toes are, you know, yeah, there it is. Every single one of us individualizes God, no exceptions. So the teaching is, of course, from our founder Ernest Holmes, that there is one life. That life is God's life, and that life is my life and your life right now. So today is about the oneness of all, that we cannot escape it. We are alive because we are living God's life. Each one of us is the essence of God, and throughout well, not eternity, but certainly since the written word, mystics from every wisdom tradition have been saying that, and I have just a few today from 1 Corinthians. This says it. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? Period. That's it. That's you. The Spirit of God dwells within you. Whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not, that's it. That's the truth. Thomas Merton, one of our modern mystics, says, the whole world is charged with the glory of God, and I feel the fire and music under my feet. Is that amazing? And your Facebook quote for the day. Facebook quote from Miguel Ruiz, that's the Four Agreements man. You are immortal. You've existed for billions of years in different manifestations because you are life, with a capital L, and life cannot die. You are in the trees, the butterflies, the fish, the air, the moon, the sun. Wherever you go, you are there, waiting for yourself. That says it all, doesn't it? I love that quote. I love Facebook. So this oneness is true when we think about, or when we see another, or when we look in the mirror. When we think about life, anybody's life, we are thinking about the life of God. And when we do anything in our lives, we are actually using that wisdom and energy of God, and the activity is therefore the activity of God. And then when we call forth forms and stuff into our lives, the substance from which it comes is more God. So really, when we think, when we act, or when we interact with form, it's all God. We can't play with anything else. It's just that. So sometimes this is very easy, like here, look at your baby. Often it is easy to see the face of God in another. Is that the truth? You know, I'm not going to talk about this, though. I'm not going to talk about when it's easy. Because what use would it be for you to come here, for me to tell you something that you already know and kind of, well, we all know all this anyway. I'm just reminding you, but I'm not going to talk about the easy stuff today. I'm going to talk about the hard stuff, when it's difficult for us to see God individualized in another. Because that's our growing edge, and that's what I put myself through, so you're going to do it too. So, look at this face. Now, this might be from a comedy. It looks like it might, but still, you know, that scowliness, that could be anger, frustration, criticism, attack. I know that all of us have had that negative energy coming at us, and in this face, there's this energy coming forth, and it's difficult to see the divinity in an attacking face coming at you if you've not done your work. And the work that needs to be done, I will talk about today. I mean, it's not very complicated. We just have to do it. But what happens a lot of times, I don't think I'm the only one, when that negative energy comes at us like that, if we haven't done our work and we get all go to, oh, that's the face of God, as Mother Teresa in such an interesting disguise, we come back. We come back. We go, oh, I have to defend myself, and we don't even think that. We kind of get in that survival loop, and it's fight or flight. And when we come back, we are defending ourselves, we are attacking the other person, and we can get triggered by this and go into defended action or counterattack, and then what happens? It escalates. It just gets worse, you know, and we're fighting. This happens in individuals. This happens in families. This is what domestic argument is about. And it's also what happens in countries, that, you know, somebody ruffles their feathers and somebody else, you know, arches their back, and, you know, it escalates, and this does not lead to any place good. I'm telling you, it does not lead to any place good. So the first step is this. We realize that everyone acts from the highest consciousness they are capable of in any particular moment. And sometimes, if we can just, that realization alone can curtail that loop, that defended loop that we get into. Because what we can say is, oh, that's the highest place that they're capable of at this moment. What happens is that the angry face that comes at us has been triggered by something, and they're in their own loop. They come from an unhealed place, and this is the only thing that they can do in the moment. The only thing they can do is show anger or frustration or criticism or attack. So this is where I got to look at my life, because something happened when I was little. I don't know, I have some ideas, but it led me to be very afraid of other people's anger. And so what did I do? I created a couple of marriages where they were really angry at me. And then more relationships before, after, and not during, but not during. But nonetheless, I have had angry faces coming at me. And then my unskilled behavior got triggered. And so I was all over the place with withdrawal and attacking back and unforgiveness and bolting and all of those things that are not skilled communication. So what happens when we realize, first of all, that everyone is acting from the highest place that they can in any particular moment, what happens is we then can realize that compassion heals condemnation. That's the healing that I am still working with. That is where I strive to see the face of God, where I can bring forth my compassion and say, in compassion, I realize this is the best they can do right now. If they knew better, they would do better. And so that's my learning edge. And sometimes I make it and sometimes I don't. But I got something really good from Einstein. Einstein was really a holy man, you know. A human being is a part of a whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for only a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. So if we can meet anger and frustration with compassion, that will begin to make a world that works for everybody. Because what happens then is that the attack is simply de-escalated. If you are not a target, there's nobody going to be shooting at you, because there's no there there. There's no antagonist there. There's only love and compassion. So that's what I am working on, and that's what heals this. So you ready for another one? Oh, by the way, if any of this sounds like, oh boy, could I learn that, see a practitioner. Our practitioners are trained to pray into a situation like this so that your compassion can be brought forth and you are able to see the face of God in another. Okay, the next one is another challenging one for me. This is about the shadow. So when we have a shortcoming that we are unwilling to look at, it becomes part of our shadow. And the shadow is the spiritually false self. It is that which we try to hide, but you know, it never really works to hide anything, because for people who can't see, they couldn't see anyway, and for people who can see, there's no sense in hiding. So here's the setup. If you do not recognize your own shadow, someone will express it for you. Oh, you noticed. Yeah, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one. So something that is so painful to look at that we keep it hidden, even from ourselves, shows up as a trait that we cannot stand in another person. So over years and years of therapy and prayer, hopefully I am better at this. I hope no one says, God, she still has a long way to go. I found that I was self-centered. I was selfish. I was self-referential. I was thinking of myself first and foremost. And that leads to defendedness, and that leads to other people's hurt feelings. And that was so hidden from me because I'm so loving, right? And when I realized this, it troubled me, it embarrassed me that self-centeredness lurks in me. And one of the reasons that made me believe it, when my therapist said, well, you do have some narcissistic tendencies, and I go, what? Is that I really don't like it in other people. I really don't like it. Raging egos in others, bullying, to keep your own position, unconscious self-referential behavior when you're supposed to be giving a talk about your wonderful daughter and all you're talking about is yourself. I really got upset because I didn't like it in me. And so that's what I mean. If you don't know your shadow, somebody will show it to you. And then everybody's triggered again, and we go back to the first one, So I've worked and worked and worked on this, and I still sometimes catch myself, and I catch it in people's facial expressions when I say something and what they really wanted was for me not to talk about me. And so I give you all permission to make that face at me because I am really working on this, and for those of you that say, oh my gosh, I've never seen that in her, well, that's because I hide it. But here's the healing. The healing is awareness. Awareness heals unconsciousness. It doesn't go all the way to changing behavior, but you have to have the awareness first in order to ever be able to change the behavior, okay? So, next is this little face. This is a girl that's not having a good day. She's hating something, she's disgusted with something, she's really not having a divine experience because she is definitely into negative judgment. And so that has to be healed in order to see the face of God in another. So the setup is hanging on to negative judgment is unhealthy. So we know this, right? But we can feel that defendedness again, and that righteous hatred, complaint, judgment, or resentment. And it eliminates any possibility of seeing the face of God in another or in ourselves. And when we hold on to resentment for a long time, it is unhealthy for us in body, mind, and spirit. And so, of course, it is forgiveness that heals hatred and resentment. So, forgiveness, for those of you that are newish to this thought, is not saying, oh, it's okay, it doesn't matter. That's the erroneous thought about forgiveness, and that's why we don't want to do it. Because actually, our unforgiveness comes from a place of judging righteously, most of the time, judging righteously that somebody has committed something that was unconscious, or somebody has done something that was unloving, or somebody has done something that was intentionally harmful, and we have a right to say that that's not okay with us, and so we stand behind this resentment. But forgiveness is not saying what you did is okay. Forgiveness is untying our attachment to the object of unforgiveness. It is untying so that that person, if all we can do is untie ourselves, that person is free for their own karma, their own lessons, their own response from the universe to their unconsciousness. And what we say is, I am untying my resentment and knowing that they did the best they could from their level of consciousness, that they may be working with their own shadow selves. And what they did really has nothing to do with me. And I bless them on their path, because eventually they will come around to learning a better way. And for me, I am going to see that God center within them, that light that they can't see. That's the power of forgiveness. So we are untying our attachment to resentment. And the practitioners can help with that as well. So when we look at these things about how hard it is to see the face of God in another, what it points up to us is that compassion, awareness, and forgiveness is essential in a world that works for everyone. It's essential for our ability to see God in them or in ourselves. So now we're working on how do we practice seeing God, taking these lessons that hopefully have reminded you of something like they reminded me. All I have to do is just, go into my unhealed places, and I've got lots of talks. So the first way that we practice seeing God is to demand compassion, awareness, and forgiveness of ourselves. Demand these qualities in our interaction with life. And when I say demand that, I mean when we get up in the morning and we create our day, we say, today I intend to be compassionate, I intend to be aware, and I intend to be forgiving. And then, at the end of the day, we evaluate. How did I do today with compassion, awareness, and forgiveness? And we say, well, I could have done better there and there and there. And then we get back on the horse the next day and say, all right, today I intend compassion, awareness, and forgiveness. And we can throw in patience as well. Patience with ourselves, learning our lesson, and with everyone else on the planet too. So we work with these qualities until they become second nature to us. And then the next thing is we model these qualities for others. And in just doing them, in being compassionate, in being aware, and being forgiving, we are modeling them. But the other piece of that is to notice when somebody else does it and tell them, wow, I really appreciate how you were with so-and-so. I really appreciate that you said that one thing that was so aware of you. And then I really appreciate that you seem to be so forgiving that you did not come back with a retort when that person said that. So you acknowledge when it happens for another person. And then, finally, the thing that really, really works with practicing seeing God is to meditate on God. And I'm going to talk about this for a while, because this is challenging for me, to simply get all of the details out of my mind and to meditate on the ultimate, infinite source. That's a hard one. So we come at it from all kinds of different ways, and I'll give you several right now. So the first, you ask yourself, how would God see this person or situation? How is God present in this situation? How is God showing up in my life right now? And you could probably answer those questions. You could, in any situation you're in, and you ask yourself, how is God showing up right here, right now? You could answer that. And then you meditate on that. I've got several other examples from this wonderful book that I refound in the back of my pile of books. It's called Bridges to Heaven. And it's famous people answering interview questions. And this is the chapter that is entitled, What God Feels Like. Joan Boroshenko says, experiencing God gives me a sense of tremendous peacefulness and love, of losing my boundaries. I feel connected with something much larger than myself. And Deepak Chopra says, in place of change, loss, and decay, there is steadiness and fulfillment. You sense that the infinite is everywhere. The fears associated with change disappear. And from Alan Cohen, experiencing the divine brings a feeling of peace. And from Ram Dass, when I enter into that quality of oneness, there's a very big shift in the whole feeling inside my body. It's as if I come back into my body and feel it is very vitally alive. And from Wayne Dyer, what does God feel like? It's like being high. I almost feel as if I can defy gravity. And Jerry Jampolsky, finally. The experience of God is beyond words. Yet if I had to describe it, I'd say it's an effervescence of spirit, a zest for life, a sense of inspiration that comes from the universe. And so I have a quote from the book that Frank quoted from, very close to where Frank quoted, but I like that one about good and more good. It's Living the Science of Mind. It's one of the textbooks for several of our classes. And this is about the healing technique of Jesus. And Ernest Holmes writes, he knew where the real substance came from. And so he taught a most simple method of practice: to go into the inner chamber of our thoughts and feelings, meditate upon the divine presence until it becomes a reality, and then conform our whole thinking to this invisible pattern of ourselves. So whatever that means, that's what you do. And sometimes, you know, with these mystical authors, you just read the statement and then you just go inside and something happens. So a lot happened. So another technique that I use is to use a name of God as your mantra when you are meditating. So, beloved, 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 or oneness, oneness, or I am, I am, I am. But my favorite one today is the story of the seeker and the Swami. So the seeker went to the Swami and said, I want to know God. And the Swami said, go back to your hut and meditate on a bull for a week. And the seeker goes, what? The Swami says, just go and do it. You know what a bull looks like? Yes. All right, go home. I'll check on you from time to time, but you're going to meditate on a bull for a week. So the seeker goes home, sits down, starts thinking about a bull. And a couple days later, the Swami comes and says, how are you doing with your meditation on God? And the seeker goes, well, I don't think I'm doing so well. I'm thinking about the bull, and I can see him. I can see the bull. I watch him run. I watch him jump the fences. I watch him with the cows, and you know. The Swami says, keep it up. And the seeker kind of complains a little bit. No, the Swami says, do it. So comes back in a couple days. How are you doing? And the seeker goes, well, I'm pretty peaceful, but I just am still thinking about this bull, and I don't know what you want me to do. I just keep thinking about the bull. Swami says, fine, I'll check back with you. So the week goes by, and the Swami comes to the hut, and says to the seeker, "Come out, your week is over." And the seeker says, "I cannot come out. My horns are too big for the door." That's how you meditate on God. So this will actually be the spiritual practice that I ask you to do this week, and I want you to report on it. And I want to remind you again what we do. There's a spiritual practice that I'm going to give you every single week, and there are cards in the back for you to write. Like next week, there'll be this practice, meditate on God, and you say what you did and what happened. And hopefully you'll be able to come, even though your horns will be very big. And you can write, and then you hand in that card, and then I read them, and then you'll get a treat at the end of the year when you do even half of the practices. So moving forward then, this is the spiritual principles for the day. To come back, we individualize the infinite is one of the principles. And the next one is, to know God, we must emulate the beloved. And the spiritual practice for our week is meditate on God. And so with that, let us do our first meditation on God. So turn within, if you would, and go to that place inside as much as you possibly can where the outside world is left alone and you are there with the beloved. And imagine walking along a path, and you're walking through a fog. And you feel as though you are coming through the fog into a lighted area, coming to a crystal experience of the infinite. And as you step into the light, your skin and muscles, organs and bones become invisible. And the vessel that is your body fills with divine light. It's a light that your soul can feel in addition to your eyes see. And we realize that we are becoming the dreamers of God. And as we become the dreamers of God, we become the dreamers of a new world that is wanting to emerge, a new world that works for everyone. And because today and a little bit later we are going to have an experience of a Ukrainian brunch, let us imagine our brothers and sisters in Ukraine 11 time zones away, and many people there right now are having the same dream, the dream of God, the body filled with light, the dream of a world that works for everyone. We are helping each other to wake up. We are helping our brothers and sisters. We are helping our sons and daughters. We are revealing the world that wants to be born with all of these divine beings walking in awareness together. And so it is.